the 2-0. Turned in the air to right field. Going back of Gonzalez out the wall. Goodbye. 3-0 in game 5.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 8 of M&A Sports Talk. I'm Matthew Kaufman. That's Aiden Roman. A lot to talk about this afternoon. Aiden, we got the pitch clock. That has been a big question mark around in Major League Baseball, and if this rule was going to be implicated during the regular season, it finally is. We got the Yankees infield questions as well. The outfield questions starting to make a little more sense for Aaron Boone and the Yankee organization. World Baseball Classic just under a week away. And then we got some interesting questions for you guys later on in the show. Some NFL free agents, including Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, looking to get their contracts settled with the Giants. Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, 3 big offseason names. And you got the New York Knicks, a 6-game winning streak with a game tonight at the Garden against the Brooklyn Nets. But first, we're going to start off, Aiden, with that pitch clock. And we were just talking about it, Aiden. It is a opportunity to make the games go quicker. What are your thoughts so far on what we've seen in this spring training?
And personally, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do have to agree it is working, Matt. I think it was the second game of spring training. It was a game for the Royals and the Mariners. Combined, 15 runs, about 25 hits combined from both sides, and the game only lasted 2.5 hours. Now, if the pitch clock wasn't implemented this season, I would say that game would have had to have lasted over 3 hours.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of players now, we heard some guys, some big names around baseball. We heard Aaron Judge say how he liked it. But we've also seen and heard some players that maybe don't like it. A guy like, not that Manny Machado came out and said, I don't like it, but he's a guy who said, oh, it looks like I'm going to be down 0-1 a lot this year. So it's hard for a player to adjust to that kind of situation. And, you know, going further into the season when the games matter a lot more, obviously you want to get off to a hot start to start the season, but at the end, near the end of the season, when it gets to July, August, September, after the All-Star break, those are kind of where those games and the playoff implications start coming in. So we mentioned it before. We talked about how it maybe should be taken away in the 7th inning or later, when those high-pressure situations or those big game situations start to come in, especially in late games in the 9th inning, maybe extra innings. But, Aiden, what are your thoughts on having it now? And it obviously worked, as you just mentioned, 2.5 hour game. You know, we've seen longer games, obviously, with some rivalries. It seems like games take longer, especially when you got division rivalries like Yankees, Red Sox, or Cubs, Cardinals, games like that are just big rivalries around baseball. These games just seem to last longer and longer. Is that going to change, do you think, even with the pitch clock, or are those rivalry games going to stay as long as they can?
I do believe the rivalry games still, well, they would definitely still be as intense as they are right now, but the pitch clock will only speed things up. Now, you can't expect to throw your ace on the mound. Say the Yankees put Garrett Cole on the mound against the Boston Red Sox in Fenway. If there's a close game, say 6th, 7th, 8th inning, you can't expect Garrett Cole, your ace, to be on his A game if he's being rushed with bases loaded. You can expect him to be throwing and thinking, like, what pitch is perfect in this situation, considering he has a big, I don't know if you saw, Matt, when the pitcher's on the mound, they see that big clock behind the batter. And if for me, if I was Garrett Cole in that situation, it wouldn't help me at all if I had to think of like what pitch to throw and okay, I have to throw it in this certain time. It would only like defect me.
Yeah, and you know, it's another thing. We saw this with Max Scherzer the other day when he was in his first spring training outing, and we kind of got to see he had his own pitch count. He was the one calling the pitches. Now, are you kind of a fan of that as a pitcher, kind of calling your own pitches? Would you rather a catcher call his own pitches? Because at the same time, you know, that does take time away, knowing that you as a pitcher know what you want to throw and what you're going to throw. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you like it, or do you dislike the fact that the pitcher can call what he wants before the catcher does?
Personally, I'm not a big fan of that. I think it kind of gets rid of a little bit of the catcher-pitcher relationship. I think I'm a big fan of the finger signs and, the pitchers shaking off a pitch and waiting for that right pitch for the catcher to call. I think that with the technology that baseball is using, it's getting a little out of, I don't want to say out of hand, but it's turning to technology based.
Yeah, and technology is such a big thing these days. They obviously use the pitch clock, speed up the game. We've seen in the minor leagues, young minor league levels, the robotic umpires that, hey, maybe who knows? We'll see those one day in Major League Baseball too, but we got a while for that, it seems like. But, looking at all of these new things and the rule changes, obviously the shift, the bigger bases, the pitch clock, it was something that really struck for the Yankees today. I was watching the game, and a simple base hit to right field through the first baseman and the second baseman probably isn't a hit last year, especially with lefties at the plate when you had that shift on. So definitely you could tell already that these new rules, especially the pitch clock and the shift, have really helped some teams, but they've hurt the defenses a little bit in some ways. And you look at, just high pressure situations, as me and you mentioned before, 7th inning, 8th inning, you got the game on the line, bases loaded, or runners in scoring position, late game situations, and you got that pitch clock winding down. It could be a little nerve wracking, no matter what level of play you're in. If you're a veteran, you're whatever it is, so it's definitely interesting. And we're going to see kind of what happens throughout the season. We'll obviously keep track of it as well. But that's definitely been the main talk around baseball, obviously, with the pitch clock, the new rule changes, and all that. So going from that, now we're going to head over to the New York Yankees side of things. Aiden, they kind of got the outfield, it seems like, figured out. It'll be Aaron Judge in right most of the time. We could see Aaron Judge in left field when Giancarlo Stanton would be in right. Harrison Bader would be in center. Also, Aaron Hicks in center field or left field as well, with Bader out there. Oswaldo Cabrera could be a mix in there. But now it's the infield questions. Obviously, we know the two catchers would be Higashioka and Trevino. The first baseman spot is pretty set. That's obviously going to be Anthony Rizzo. So now you have second, third, and shortstop open at the time. Now, DJ LeMahieu was a Gold Glove infielder. You had Connor Falefa, Gold Glover caliber infielder. Yes, he was, as we mentioned last week in episode 7, Aiden, you mentioned the few errors he had in the postseason. And I was listening to the broadcast today with Michael Kay and Jeff Nelson, and they were constantly saying that, talking about the social media talks, and it's been a talk through every MLB team this offseason and during this spring training so far, that the small mistakes come bigger to players, especially when it hits social media. So as a player, if you're out there, and we're going to put it in your shoes, if you're out there and you, let's say, make an error that could cost your team the game, and you go on social media later and you see that people are commenting and posting and all this and that, does that affect you as a player?
I mean, it depends on what player you are, but if you were asking me, you make the error early in the game, like let's say the first couple of innings, you do make an error. By the end of the game, you're not thinking about it anymore. Win or lose, you're thinking, oh, okay, we either have to step all of our performances up, or, okay, we got to continue this hot streak. But once you pull up that phone and everything is socialized, especially in New York, the city of New York, the fans, ever since the 90s, the fans are hungry to win just as much as the team is. They only expect to win. They never expect to lose. That's why, the chase for 28 is still going on, and hopefully we'll get that 28 championship this year. But with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa making errors, I guess we'll see how he pans out this spring. I do think he will be the starting shortstop come the regular season. But later in the year, around probably before the All-Star break, I do see Volpe coming up, or a little bit of Peraza sprinkling in there at the shortstop position. But if Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is starting on opening day, I do think Josh Donaldson gets cut from the starting lineup, and we see a little bit of LeMahieu at third.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention that and ask your opinion on who you think should be the starting infield. Obviously, we just mentioned Rizzo is set at first base. No one's taken that guy's spot. He's amazing over there at first. Gold Glover can hit about 30 home runs a season. But you want to have a guy, it seems like, no matter what, no matter where you put DJ LeMahieu, if you put him at second, you put him at third, you let him DH, or you give Rizzo a day off, put LeMahieu at first. You want to have that guy in your lineup, especially when he's healthy. You can look at his numbers. He is one of the best hitters in baseball, if not the best offensive hitter in baseball. So having him in the lineup for the New York Yankees is got to be a key for Aaron Boone and this organization, because when he's in there, they get hits, they get base runners, and you know the guys behind him with Judge. You have Rizzo and Stanton behind him, of course, and then the rest of your lineup. So having him in there is huge, but at the same time, you want to get the bats of Gleyber Torres, who you could be looking to sign a contract to. Anthony Volpe, who you mentioned, could come up a little later on in the season, if not at the near the end of the season. Oswald Peraza, who is fighting with Kiner Falefa right now for the starting shortstop job, and Anthony Volpe as well. You know, it's such an opportunity for these young guys to get to be the starting shortstop for opening day against the San Francisco Giants on March 30th at the Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. But also you got to put together the rest of those factors, you know, and having LeMahieu at third, the Gold Glover, obviously he's great at that position, but so is Josh Donaldson. And Aaron Boone said it, and we heard it as well today on the broadcast against the Nationals in the spring training game. You know, Donaldson had a great defensive year last year, but the numbers weren't where he wanted it to be, nor did they where the Yankees wanted it to be. So depending, it seems like, on the spring that he has and what they see in practice and warm-ups, it'll all determine on what Donaldson's position will be. Obviously, he'll be at third base, or he'll be on the bench. So that's going to be something to look out for, Aiden, as well. But if you look ahead to March 30th, who in your eyes is your starting infield for the New York Yankees from first all the way around to third base?
I would 100% agree with the Rizzo factor. You can't get rid of Rizzo. You can't. I wouldn't even take Judge at first base. I know we saw a little bit of him getting reps, but so it would be Rizzo at first. I would love to put Gleyber at second. You can't go wrong with that. I would probably end up throwing Isaiah at short, only because I don't think Volpe will be 100% ready. I mean, who knows? If he has an amazing sprint, maybe he'll get that call up early. But Isaiah at short, and obviously, just because of the bat and amazing glove too, I would have to throw LeMahieu at third base.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because we've seen all the potential lineups, obviously, all over social media, what you could have. Obviously, you pretty much have your outfield set besides the decision of where Oswaldo Cabrera would play. But right now, it's a talk between who is going to win the shortstop battle. Is it going to be Kiner Falefa? Is it going to be Oswald Peraza? It could honestly be Oswaldo Cabrera, who's played shortstop for the Yankees a little bit last year as well. Obviously, we wouldn't see, most likely Aaron Boone would not play Gleyber Torres at shortstop as of the moment, probably not even thinking of it at the time. But for the Yankees and a guy like Gleyber Torres, that when he gets hot for New York, he is hot. He could put the ball in play and he can hit the opposite field. So that's something for the Yankees that you want to see. And it's big to have him in the lineup as well. And for me, I would obviously have Torres play second. I'd have Oswald Peraza play short because of the power that he has in that lineup, as well, the defense ability that he has. And then obviously I'd keep LeMahieu at third. But you also have the option off the bench with Kiner Falefa in late game situation. You need a pinch runner for speed, and you have Josh Donaldson in the game for defense. If you had to take Torres out, when you put LeMahieu at second, put Donaldson at third. So many different scenarios for Aaron Boone to think about for the New York Yankees. And just kind of looking at what the schedule looks like, obviously they'll have opening day March 30th. If a rain delay or a rain out, they would play on the 31st on that Friday. Then they got the two other games, the 1st and the 2nd of April against the Giants, a 3-game set against the Phillies. And then they head to the road against the Orioles and then the Guardians. And then the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th, they have the Twins, and then an off day on that Monday, the 17th. And then they head back to the stadium. So definitely a lot of interesting key factors for New York and Aaron Boone to kind of figure out. But that's what spring training is for. You get all these opportunities really to put your pieces of the puzzle together for all these teams. And another guy that I want to mention that's for the Yankees, and that's Domingo Germán. And we talked about it earlier, Aiden. Domingo Germán has been kind of an up and down guy. He's fighting for the 5th spot with Clark Schmidt, with Frankie Montas on the injured list until later on in the season. What are your expectations for Domingo Germán entering 2023?
Matt, if he continues to have amazing starts like this, especially during spring training, getting everybody getting warmed up, I'm pretty sure he played today, had a little over 3 innings pitched, gave up no runs and a hit. If he can continue to do that, I would definitely have him as my 5th starter and have Clark Schmidt come out of the bullpen like he did last year. Last year we did have Taillon, so Taillon's increasingly from Taillon to Clark, you had to put Clark Schmidt in the bullpen. But if Germán ends up not getting it done, say like a month into the season, I would have no problem throwing Clark Schmidt in there for the 5th starter.
Yeah, and there's also other options besides Schmidt and Germán. Obviously, you have Davy Garcia, who was up in the Yankee major league system for a little while back in 2020. He had that start in the division series against the Tampa Bay Rays. Obviously, Davy Garcia, didn't pitch as well for the Yankees, so they sent him back down. But now he's kind of in that mix without Montas to be the 5th starter for the Yankees. Is it more likely for Germán or Clark Schmidt to be? Absolutely, because of just the way that everything's formed and panned out for those two. But we definitely could at some time or some point in time for sure see Davy Garcia. So that is the baseball side of things. We're going to take a quick timeout, and then we got free agent talks for the NFL, and then the Nets on a 6-game winning streak, looking to make it 7 at the Garden tonight against the Nets. That all and more from M&A Sports Talk. We'll be right back. Welcome back to M&A Sports Talk. I'm Matthew Kaufman. That's Aiden Roman. Just so many different things go into the NFL offseason with each organization, Aiden, and especially getting ready for the NFL Combine that starts in just a couple of days. We got March 2nd, the first day, which is tomorrow. Drill starting at 2 p.m. Eastern time on the NFL Network. March 2nd through the 5th, all inside look combine experience for you guys to watch, mainly on the NFL Network. That'll take place at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. And, Aiden, this is a time for these young stars to come out of college and show NFL teams and meet with NFL teams and show them what they got.
Oh, 100%. Everything's, I would not say everything, but most of everything that you've worked for your whole career is on the line. If you don't perform well at that combine, if your career could take a turn for the worse. But I saw a video of George Kittle at his combine. I was laughing a little bit because, it was a young rookie, George Kittle, but he was eating it up. He was doing amazing. It didn't jump a pass, extremely fast, and that only shows how good he was or how good he is. Especially right now, one of the best, if not the best, tight end in the game right now.
Yeah, definitely. And, coming out of college is such a big thing for all these guys, especially with the participants and all the players, position players. But one guy that I'm really excited to see, Bijan Robinson out of Texas, and just looking at the numbers that he's put up for this team. He has been so good. And if there's one guy that you're looking at, who is it?
I would have to say Bryce Young. Alabama, I watched a couple of his games 2 years ago. It was in the championship, if I'm not mistaken. And it was amazing. He did good. An unfortunate loss, though. But I would have to say, if you're in a rebuilding stage, I would 100% say to pick up Bryce Young as a good quarterback.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of teams or a lot of mock drafters are picking him to go over to the Houston Texans. Obviously, that's all up for grabs. So, Aiden, kind of looking back at everything, we look towards the season and the draft, what are your expectations for teams, and how do you think their process for drafting players are, especially with big free agents like Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, and all these big time names, Carson Wentz, who just got released. Obviously, who else? Levante David, Nelson Aguilar, Mike Gesicki, all these guys that are on the free agent list. These are just the top free agents right now. But how do you kind of go over that if you can't get a contract signed by that time? Are you drafting in that position in case, or are you doing anything possible to get a deal done before the draft so you don't have to worry about
I'll put myself in the Giants' shoes to answer that question. If we can't get it done with Saquon Barkley or Daniel Jones, I would say for the quarterback position, 100% you need to go pick somebody up. But running back wise, I would say you go in the draft, try to find a young stud, and hopefully, he produces as well, if not close enough to Saquon Barkley's caliber. But speaking of free agents, I think if we do re-sign Daniel Jones, we get a little reunion and pick up Odell Beckham.
Yeah, a lot of people have actually been saying that and talking about that the Giants could go back to Odell Beckham Jr., but just so many different opportunities for players to go and meet with these young guys and get to know them a little bit better, know their personality, know the traits of them. So definitely a lot of things going on there. But at the same time, you look at these big name free agents and you have guys like Jalen Ramsey, who is looking kind of for a landing spot, it seems like, for him. And where could he go? I mean, a lot of people are saying, hey, maybe the Giants go after a big name like that. The Jaguars, the Raiders, the Cowboys. Imagine him with Dallas, with Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons and that tremendous defense that is already there. But just looking at the defensive side of things, I mean, it is a scary sight right now, you could say, because of everything that these teams have. You look at guys like Lamar Jackson, right, who has been so good this year, or so good in his NFL career, but struggled with injury, couldn't get back this year. So where does he wind up? Obviously, Baltimore says they're trying to do anything possible to get him back in a Ravens uniform. And obviously, a lot of people would love to see that just because of, well, how good Lamar Jackson has been, Aiden. And kind of what are your thoughts on Lamar Jackson, and does he get a contract deal done with the Baltimore Ravens?
I wouldn't be surprised if he does end up getting a amazing long deal contract for the Ravens. But if the Ravens want to end up winning a Super Bowl or just going to the playoffs every single year, they're going to need more than just Lamar Jackson. I mean, if you look at the free agents this year, maybe you could pick up, in case Lamar Jackson does get injured, you pick up a backup like Geno Smith. I don't think he'd want to be a backup, though. But maybe you add some more weapons to the defense. Quarterback from Philadelphia, James Bradbury, is a free agent this offseason, I should say. But then you have people like Josh Jacobs. Yeah, like you almost can't let up on an offer like that. I think you should, if they do sign Lamar Jackson, or even if they don't, I think they have to go after not drafting, but looking at free agents and picking up who's hot.
Yeah, and it's such a big question mark for these guys, especially to figure out where they're going to go, the preparation that they have. Obviously, they're all doing so much to see kind of what's going on and figure out everything compared to where am I going to play next season? Who am I training with this offseason to get better and get ready for next season? So, we're going to look at the top free agents right now. And right now, obviously, Derek Carr, who's a free agent, he's probably the biggest question mark along with Aaron Rodgers. Where he's going to land, either the Jets are a big favorite for that as well. The New Orleans Saints are in the conversation. Someone just released, actually, the Washington Commanders releasing Carson Wentz, third team to release him now. Where does he end up is another question, and is if he ends up somewhere, where does he end up in the QB situation? Does he end up being a starter? Is he just going to kind of float on the bench? Marcus Mariota from the Atlanta Falcons released as well, and he could be another opportunity for a team that's trying to redevelop in some way, shape, or form, just kind of a veteran presence in the locker room as well. Baker Mayfield with the Rams, obviously another kind of big name that's up in the air of where he ends up. Jimmy Garoppolo, who we've seen question mark, a lot of people saying maybe the Las Vegas Raiders go after him. Obviously, the 49ers said it. That was it. Last year was it. We are now going to be between Trey Lance and it seems like Brock Purdy, who's going to kind of battle it out with each other during the offseason and when it comes time to OTAs and training camp. So who do you think and where do you think that player goes? Who is going to be the biggest free agent, or who is the biggest free agent on the market, I should say, and where does that player wind up?
I would 100% have to say, as of right now, it has to be between Lamar Jackson, who I think will end up returning to the Baltimore Ravens, or Josh Jacobs. I'm really stuck between those two. Now, will he re-sign with the Raiders? He had an amazing season. He's been having great seasons. The Raiders, I think they need a quarterback. Once they get a better quarterback, they release Derek Carr. If they get, let's say, a Jimmy Garoppolo, or maybe even Carson Wentz to come in there. You never know. You get Carson Wentz for cheap. I think as long as they have a decent quarterback for Devontae Adams, so they could, the defense could worry about the deep threat, the deep ball, they could end up using Josh Jacobs and run it.
Yeah, that's definitely an opportunity. You mentioned Carson Wentz just now, and a lot of obviously this just kind of coming out the other day that Carson Wentz released from the Commanders. So with the Raiders situation, obviously they're done with Derek Carr. He's not going to be a Raider again, at least this season. You have the opportunity for Jimmy Garoppolo, who could connect with head coach McDaniel. But at the same time, where do you stand as an organization knowing you have a guy like Devontae Adams, you want to re-sign Josh Jacobs, and your defense that struggled also last year, so you want to go get a couple of guys defensively to make plays for you. So definitely a lot of interesting things for the Raiders. Obviously, we have no answers yet, but when we do, obviously, they'll be discussed. So definitely the question marks around the NFL and the offseason and what they bring for us, because the combine is not just an opportunity for the young guns from college, but it's an opportunity for free agents to kind of meet with organizations. We obviously heard Derek Carr is going to be meeting with a few organizations along with the New Orleans Saints within the next couple of days, and his talks with the Jets, obviously, depending on what the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers come to, that'll be a whole decision. So now we're going to kind of get into the rest of this. But before we do, we are going to get ready for our game. When we come back right here on M&A Sports Talk, we got Mount Rushmore of baseball and football. Where does it land? Find out right after this on M&A Sports Talk. Well, welcome back to M&A Sports Talk. I'm Matthew Kaufman. That's Aiden Roman. Aiden, give me your Mount Rushmore for Major League Baseball.
All right, so right now, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle. You can't go wrong with that duo right there. Obviously, you got to throw in Hank Aaron. And the last one's a little hard, but I would have to say 100% Barry Bonds.
I'm going to go with my big four, Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth, Nolan Ryan, and Derek Jeter. Now let's go to the NFL side of things, Aiden. Who are your NFL's Mount Rushmore?
This one's a little bit harder to do, but obviously the late great Tom Brady, you can't go wrong with that. One of the best quarterback in the NFL. That's where it gets hard. I will throw Lawrence Taylor in there. Played for the Giants, an amazing career. Don't get me wrong. Now thinking, I will have to go Randy Moss, and the last one gets a tiny bit close, but I will probably throw in I'm gonna go with Ray Lewis.
That's definitely an interesting one. I'm gonna go with Tom Brady, obviously, as you mentioned. I'm gonna go Lawrence Taylor, lineman for the defense of the New York Giants back in his days. Jerry Rice and prime time Deion Sanders. Well, we got basketball talk coming up next right here after another short break of M&A Sports Talk. The Knicks are hot, red hot, trying to stay hot against the Nets at the Garden tonight. Welcome back to M&A Sports Talk. I'm Matthew Kaufman. Once again, that's Aiden Roman, episode number 8 here on this newest edition of Sports Talk and the M&A Sports Talk right here coming at you live. And Aiden, we got Knicks basketball. Man, is it nice when the New York Knicks are winning basketball games?
Oh, 100%. I know we talked about this. I'm pretty sure it was last episode. You gave me the rundown, the up-and-coming Knicks lineup, and I gave you kind of what's going to happen. And I would say I was 100% right. I said once we got on the homestand, we were going to dominate and take over. Well, we did it. We won that night on the podcast against the Hawks, 122 to 101. We go back home. We stay away, play the Wizards, 115-109. We go back home against the Pelicans, take care of business in MSG. Last 2 nights ago, we played the Celtics. I'm pretty sure they have the best record in basketball right now, if the Nuggets hasn't surpassed them yet. But now we handle the Brooklyn Nets. Now the Brooklyn Nets were in the 5th seed after the win 2 nights ago and the loss 2 nights ago by the Brooklyn Nets. The Knicks have taken over that 5th seed spot, which I predicted just how you predicted that Harrison Butker would win the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. I predicted that the Knicks would end up taking the Nets' fifth place spot during this homestand.
Yeah, and right now it's kind of up to tonight, really. If the season ended tonight, it would come down to this game for who's got the 5 seed, who's got the 6 seed in the Eastern Conference, because it's the Knicks right now who are currently at the 5 seed. They've won 6 straight. The Nets have been on the losing end of 3 straight games, and the Knicks are 8-2 in their last 10 games. On the other side, it hasn't been too hot for the Nets. They are 3-7 in their last 10 games, losing their last 3 in a row. Now, you also look at the Milwaukee Bucks. And Aiden, I'll tell you one thing. This team is red hot right now in Milwaukee. And it's such a key for this Milwaukee Bucks team because you look at what they've done. They've won 10 straight games. They are 10-0 in their last 10 games. And this is a team that has really been a key to the Eastern Conference in 2022. They're 44-17, 15 straight games. They're 10-0 in their last 10, obviously, with that. And with the opponents of Orlando coming up, Philadelphia, that's going to be a really key matchup as they're the number 3 seed right now, but they have lost 2 straight. But then you got Washington, Orlando, a struggling Brooklyn Nets team, Golden State Warriors that as of now still without Stephen Curry. You got the Suns and Sacramento, Toronto and Indiana, and then the rest of the season. But this is a Bucks team that really is looking dominant and a team that looks like they can win it all this year, along with the Boston Celtics that we've talked about. Aiden, now, who do you see kind of ending up in the NBA playoffs. Before we get to that, we're going to take a look at the Boston Celtics' upcoming schedule, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Brooklyn Nets on Friday this week. Then they got the New York Knicks as well. Then they got Cleveland again, and then Portland, Atlanta, Houston, Minnesota, Portland again. So teams that kind of are getting ready near the end of the season. Just a few weeks, just over a month about left for this 2023 NBA season. And Aiden, who are you looking at, and who do you think could win it all here in 2023?
Now I'm going to give you the top 8 teams. I'm pretty sure the 9 and 10 seed with the play-in are now in the playoffs, if I didn't get that mixed up. But I would 100%. But for the Eastern Conference, I don't see the leaderboard changing at all. I see the Wizards at the 10 seed all the way to the Bucks at the 1st seed. I see that them all making it. Now, when it comes to the West, I know I'm going to branch off a little bit. When it comes to the West, everything is close. Well, besides the bottom 2 teams, everything is close. If the Lakers decide, maybe we do have to step things up, they can end up around the 6th or 7th seed if they end up winning. 20 games left in the season. If they win at least 15, maybe 14, they'll be, I would say, in a way better spot than they are now, sitting in the 12th seed. But sticking to the Eastern Conference, I do see the Bucks. Obviously, you can't go wrong with the Bucks. I do see the Bucks making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, as a I'm not going to say biased Knicks fan, I think the Knicks will end up meeting them in the Eastern Conference Finals. Do I think we would beat the Milwaukee Bucks? No. I'll keep it honest. I don't see us beating the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that I'm going to give you a little extra here. The finals will be the Milwaukee Bucks, and I do believe if Kevin Durant stays healthy, the Suns will take that other final spot.
Yeah, and that's definitely an opportunity for the New York Knicks because of what's happening and the way that they've played in the last few games. Just looking at the numbers that the Knicks have put up offensively and the guys that have really stepped up, obviously Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, just all those guys that have been stepping up during this winning streak. It's so hard to say, but it's really been the guys that have stepped up, and we've heard the chants on the bench. Oh, we want Derrick Rose, the crowd chanting Derrick Rose, just the energy that the Garden has once again with the New York Knicks on this 6-game winning streak. Well, there's about 5 minutes till about the pregame coverage gets started for the New York Knicks as we get set for tip-off 7:30 between the Knicks and the Nets here this afternoon or here tonight. And Aiden, what a week in sports. Baseball is finally back in full swing. Just a few weeks away from opening day. Football, combine, and the draft just moments away from us as well. Knicks are hot. They're looking to stay hot, and we're going to stay hot right here on M&A Sports Talk. We'll see you next week, episode number 9. Next week, if you haven't tuned in already, 2 episodes 1 through 7, be sure to do so as we wrap up episode number 8, saying so long and see ya as baseball is back in full swing, baby. Have a good night.